Hey everybody, welcome back to Weaponized CAD. I'm your host Danny. Today we're going to talk about text and dimension styles. It's not going to be a very long video because a lot of this stuff has been adapted over the years and built into CAD. It used to be that you were thrown into CAD and you had one text style, one dimension style, and they never looked correct. So for text and dimension styles, we are going to be in the Home tab, Annotation panel. Need to add text, you can simply click the big A. The big A gives you multi-line text, which is also referred to as M text. Multi-line text can also be keyed into the keyboard, M-T-E-X-T. And what it's asking you here is to select a corner. So it's giving you some information down in the command line. Current text style is standard. Text height is 1. Is it annotative? Yes or no? M-text specify first corner. So what we're doing is we're going to left click and draw a box. And it can be any size box. You can draw it like this, you can draw it like this. It really doesn't matter. This is just to get you started. So you click and you notice it's going to pull itself up because M-text has almost like a Microsoft Word thing built into it. So let's type something. This is only a test. Nope. I'm going to do it in all caps the proper way. Only a test. Now, when you press enter in an M-text box, it gives you another line. AutoCAD defaults to M-text. Clicking outside that box ends the text command, closes it out. You look down here, it says type a command. That means we're out of the command. Back to the Home tab, let's click the arrow below text in the Annotation panel, and we're going to select single line text. With single line text, it's only going to ask you for a start point and a rotation angle. So right now, we turn F8 off, ortho off. You're going to notice that it's not asking you to create a box like this text did. So for this, we're going to turn on F8, we're going to click over to the right, and we're going to type the same thing. This is only a test. Enter. When I press enter one time, it gives me another line. This is another test. And it gives me another line. With every enter key, it gives you another line only if there is text above the blank line. So this is the blank line. This is the text above it. If I backspace, I'm going to hit enter. It gives me another line. If I hit enter again, it closes the command. Now, here's the difference between M-text, which is multi-line text, and this is called D-text, which they're just calling text now, single line text. Multi-line text, single line text. Multi-line text, let me move this up a little bit. To edit the text, I'm going to double click. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to press enter. This is another test. With multi-line text, you can hit enter as many times as you want. It's not going to close itself out like the single line text does. Another difference is that multi-line text, this is an entire object. Okay, I'm grabbing the square grip, which is the move grip, entire object. You notice that even though we typed these two different lines in that same text, they are individual. So the industry and Autodesk are trying to push us more toward using M-text because it's a lot more powerful. If we wanted to edit this text and we double clicked it, you notice that your ribbon changes. So you have a lot of options up here. You have match properties, bold, italic, underline, overline, strike through. You can change your font in here. You can change your justification. You can change, actually justification is twice. This is for more control as you're working. And these are if you know a certain line needs to look a certain way. If you noticed, because I have the cursor here, if I hit the center justification, it's only going to center that line of text. Now, if I were to window all of this text by simply selecting all of the text and I hit the center button, it's going to center everything. When you double click the single line text, it's only going to let you edit the single line. This is literally its own line. This is its own line. These are individual text objects. You're also going to notice that when you double click into this, the ribbon does not change. So this text is more for your own notes that you don't necessarily want to show up on your sheet. This is the more powerful text. There's indents. You can set paragraph markers. We can indent like that, indent that, then we can indent that. Let's say we didn't like the way that this text looks. We can either go to, now see, let me back up a second. When we selected single line, that actually made this button become single line. If we want it to default to multi-line, we have to select multi-line. And the way that you can tell the difference is that multi-line does not have a line underneath it. You notice there's like a very thin blue line under the single line text. Multi-line doesn't have that. Also, if for whatever reason you needed your multi-line text to become single line text, you can actually explode multi-line text and it becomes single line text. Now, let's say we wanted to use a completely different font. We wanted to use a different font size. We wanted everything to be italic. We're going to set it up by using the style command. You type style. This is the text style control window. So what happens in here is every drawing has the standard text style. You cannot get rid of this. It does not let you delete this text style. But you can create a new text style, and we'll say weaponized CAD. When you create a new text style, make sure you set it current. Let's change our fonts to something obnoxious just so we can see it. Let's say, and this text style window gives you a preview of what the text looks like. So once you click in here once, let's say we go with Malgan Gothic. If you press the down arrow, you can actually cycle through all the different font names. So if you're looking for something that's very specific to what you're drawing, but you don't know what you want the text to look like, you can just click in there once and then just arrow key down through all these text styles. And you can actually hold the arrow key down and zip through them. So let's do something like this. Gothic E. We're going to turn on annotative, which we haven't gotten into yet, but we will. We're going to set paper text height to 0.1. Now, the reason that we set it to 0.1 is because 0.1 looks the best when plotting different scales. It scales to 1/8 of an inch, regardless of how the drawing was drawn, regardless of how the viewport is set up, which we also haven't gotten into. It's going to come into play more when we get into annotative settings. Annotative settings is going to be another really boring video, but it's very necessary when it comes to creating sheets that you're actually printing, plotting, publishing. You can make your text upside down, you can make your text backward, and you can make your text vertical. So it's going to put one character vertical all the way down. You can change the width factor, say 0.8. What that's going to do is it's going to squeeze all of your characters closer together. And the oblique angle, let's say 15, that's going to just tip your text, and you can actually do a negative number in there too. So if you needed to do something crazy, you can do it that way. So we created our own text style. If you double click on the text style, it's the same thing as hitting the set current button. Then we're going to click close. So now we've created our own text style. Let's go back up here to text. Text is on the home tab in the annotation panel. It's also under the annotate tab under the text panel. And under this panel, you can actually change your text style. It's going to list all your styles. Right now, we only have annotative, standard, and weaponized CAD. It's already set to weaponized CAD, but if you didn't want to have to go back into the style command and double click set current, you can do that under the annotate tab. So let's put some multi-line text in. Now, because I set the text style to annotative text, it's going to pop this window up and say you are creating an annotative object. Set the annotation scale to the scale at which the annotation is intended to display. When annotative objects were introduced, all of us were like, what in the world does this even mean? Because it's essentially, this description is not very good. It's giving a description of itself with itself, which you can't do. We all tried to do it in elementary school in a book report, and it didn't work. It doesn't work for them either, and yet here we are. We're still looking at this same window. So right now, we're going to leave it at 1-to-1. We're going to click OK. And we're going to redraw our mtext window. We're going to say this, got to turn on my caps. This is another test of the text style. Now you're going to notice that the text is much, much smaller than this text. This text is set to non-annotative. This text is set to annotative. And what that means is that it's looking at the annotation scale, which is down here, the 1-to-1. 1 inch equals 1 inch, 1 foot equals 1 foot, 1 unit equals 1 unit. And it's taking the information that we put into the text style. We told it we want it to be annotative, and we want the paper text height to be 0.1. So that means that at 1-to-1, this text height is 0.1. Now, the same thing goes for dimensions. This is all going to make sense when we start talking about annotative objects. I'm just giving you guys the quick rundown of how to get this set up. Let's put in a dimension. We're going to go to the Home tab. We're going to go to the same annotative panel. We're going to click Dimension. Down at the bottom it says Select Objects or Select First Extension Line Origin or Angular, Baseline, Continue, Ordinate, Align, Distribute, Layer, Undo. All we want to do is just click in 2 places. After you make your second click, it's going to give you control of where the actual dimension is going to go. When you make that third left click, it brings you back to the dim command. So let's say we had a vertical dimension that we needed to do. Click, click, third click places the dimension. Now, let's say we don't want 4 decimal places in our dimension. It also doesn't have what type of units these are. Is this feet? Is this inches? Is this meters? What the heck is this? We're going to type dim style. This is the dimension style manager. Now, the text style manager is a lot more simple than the dimension style manager. Just like the text style, there's also the standard dimension style. You can't get rid of it. We can create a new one over here. We're going to click New. Let's say Weaponized CAD. We're going to start with the standard text style. And we're going to make it annotative again. Continue. And now we're into the new dimension style, Weaponized CAD. That's the name that we gave it. And there's a number of tabs up here. It gives you control over how you want the lines to look, how you want the arrowheads to look. Do you want architectural ticks? Do you want solid arrowheads? Do you want hollow arrowheads? Do you want the lines to extend a specific distance beyond the dimension? These little stub lines here, you can set these to whatever you want. You can force this arrowhead to be bigger. You can force the arrowheads to be on the outside. You can make this gap larger between the actual node of the dimension, which is the point that you click, and where the dimension line starts. That's all controlled in here. So for lines, I typically don't bother with this upper left-hand part of this menu. I also don't really ever touch the bottom left part of this menu. If I'm going to touch anything, it's going to be extend beyond dim lines, and it's going to be offset from origin. For the most part, for now, you can get away with not actually changing anything in the lines tab. The symbols and arrows tab and the text tab are really the ones that you want to focus on. So symbols and arrows lets you change the way that your arrowheads look. When you click that drop down, it gives you all kinds of options. You can also change the size of your arrowhead here. I'm going to change mine to 0.1. We're going to change our center marks. We don't want any actual center marks. We just want the dimension of either the arc or the circle without a physical point in the middle that will print. So we're going to turn that off completely. Dimension break size, you can change that. This stuff over here, arc length symbols, I don't really personally use arc length dimensions because I don't like the way that they look. Linear jog dimension, I don't usually touch that either. Moving on to the text tab. Text style. Now, like we set up before, if you click the drop down, you can actually pick the text style that you created. And you're going to notice that the dimension preview over here changed to our newly created style. Can't change the text height, can't change the fraction text height because it's being controlled by this style. You can say what you want your text to look like when it's placed. In a vertical dimension, you can set centered, above, outside, just inside, or below. Horizontal, same thing. View direction left to right. If for whatever reason you wanted to flip it right to left, you can do that. And the offset from the dimension line is going to be this little gap right here. The gap between the text itself and the start of the dimension line. Text alignment, this is a pretty good one. Now this, you're going to notice that this is plan readable text, which means that it flips it so you don't have to rotate the sheet of paper around when you're trying to read a dimension. If we go over here to aligned with dimension line, CAD is going to automatically rotate the text 90 degrees. If it goes past 90 degrees, creating an upside down dimension, it will actually flip that dimension over. Let's go up to fit. Don't really have to touch anything in here. With the exception of text placement. When text is not in the default position, place it beside the dimension line, over dimension line with a leader, over dimension line without a leader. This allows you in tight spaces where whatever you're trying to dimension is very small, the text mostly won't fit if the object is small. You're going to run into it a lot. So what I typically like to do is say over dimension line with leader, because what this lets me do is it lets me control where I place the text. So it's going to be hard to see in here, but this is an over dimension line with leader dimension right here. What it's doing is it's dimensioning this distance here, and then it's giving you a second leader line with the text above it. And you can actually grab that text and move it around, independent of the dimension itself. Primary units, this is where you set what you want your units to be, just like the units command that we talked about in a previous video. I'm going to set mine to engineering, which gives me feet and inches, feet and decimal inches. You can set a round off in here. Measurement scale factor, I don't usually touch this. And alternate units and tolerances, I don't even touch. We're going to click OK. We're going to set this current, and we're going to close it. Now, these dimension styles were created with the standard AutoCAD dimension style. Let's say I wanted to change these. If I select both of them and I go into my properties window that I've docked over on the side, under the miscellaneous, you can actually drop standard down and change it to your new dimension style. Now you're going to notice everything got smaller. The arrowheads got smaller, the text got smaller, and it now matches this text size. Because we set this text size to 0.1, this is going to match this. So now, no matter what we type in or what dimensions we put in, we've set current our text style and we've set current our dimension style. And this is going to carry us from start to finish in a project. Now, I wouldn't actually ever keep this because you can barely read this text. So let's do this. Let's go back into style. Let's change this back to Arial because that is a commonly used true type font that ships with Windows. I'm going to get rid of my oblique angle. I'm going to keep annotative, and I'm going to keep this paper size, and I'm going, or paper text height. I'm going to click apply, and I'm going to click close. Now you notice my text changed, and my dimension text changed, and it's now readable. So honestly, that's pretty much it until we really get into annotation and how to control annotation. And that's going to be another video that's going to be very hard to grasp at first. It's going to require a number of playthroughs, not for the purpose of the views. It's just a complicated discussion. And even after the discussion, it's not going to make a lot of sense until you start using it. So this is text and dimension style setup, super quick. I know I rambled on for a little bit there, but thanks everybody for coming to Weaponized CAD. I'm Danny. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you in the next one.